lead story in Yediot Achronot and Ma'ariv, September 10th, that happened to be the day that I went to Israel for the Yom Tovim. I read the rather long article, about 5 pages on each newspaper, about a Nazi gang, a Nazi ring that's been busted in Israel, in Petach Tikva. These Nazis would regularly gather in some of their homes and throw the Sieg Heil salute Hitler, throw parties on Hitler's birthday, and they would also vandalize shuls. They painted a few swastikas on some shuls in Petach Tikva. There was some acts of vandalism and aggression and violence against old people, homeless people, prostitutes, homosexuals. And I was sure that by the time I come back, the blog world would be ablaze with this. Well, for all you know, it was all ignored by all of the holy rollers, the righteous people who are so indignated by the evil Haredi vermin beating up an old woman on the bus and the evil Haredi vermin burning trash cans in the streets. Somehow, this little story of a Nazi gang being busted in Israel passed under their radar. Now you might say, okay, a few kooks, what can we do? Can happen in any society. Well, for all you know, a few days after they've been busted, again, there were a few more acts of vandalism in other cities of Israel. Funny, no? Well, the article also reveals that all of the members in all of these gangs are new immigrants from the former Soviet bloc. How surprising. How surprising. The fanatic, right-wing lunatics have warned you for about 30 years that an unbridled immigration policy with no background checks, without checking whether you're really Jew, and to accept any kind of fake, phony, fraudulent giur conversion is a right, and that such a policy would bring disaster and disintegrate and demoralize and, of course, de-Judaize the Israeli society. But of course we were laughed at and scoffed at, and we will continue to be, because these are just some few negligible incidents of a few delinquents, right? Because they became Nazis because they were delinquents. Not the opposite, of course. They didn't become delinquents because they become Nazis, and they didn't become Nazis because they had already hatred of Jews for generations in Russia, and they regularly spent a lot of time on the internet, for which some people are willing to give their lives so that the evil Haredi vermin should have internet in their homes. But of course we're not talking about it, because the fact of the matter is that they could have gotten any Nazi literature in Israel easily without the internet. And of course the article, which surprisingly enough was written, all of the articles in the papers that I saw were written by people whose last name and many of their first names also sounded hauntingly Russian. Very Russian. I don't remember the names right now, but you can check it up for yourself if you want. I'm not sure if the online edition, to which the links I'll give you, also have the same orders, but it doesn't matter. The orders of the articles in the mainstream Israeli media were all people with Russian-sounding names, maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions. And of course the conclusion of this genius article was that the problem was xenophobia. The evil Israelis didn't accept and didn't welcome these poor immigrants from Russia with open arms. After all, they could have gone to the United States also, because we know that after the 1964 Immigration Act by our good friend Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Teddy Bear Kennedy, made it so easy for everyone to come in that it's almost easier than Israel, but not easier, only if you come from Mexico. But of course, let's just leave this ingenious argument right now aside. So as I said, the conclusion was that there was xenophobia. They were shunned everywhere they went in Israel. Although, to the best of my knowledge, although these Russian immigrants stick very much together, and I would, by any stretch of the word, wouldn't say that they are fully integrated in Israeli society, but they did much well, for example, than the Ethiopian Jews or the Yemenites and the Moroccans in the 50s, certainly much better, which has to do with, well, we won't go into that. but the fact of the matter is that they are much better accepted and they are much better off. The immigration packages offered by the Israeli government, which somehow doesn't bother any of the people who attack the Haredi yeshivas for taking money from the government, which I shouldn't do, but it's also a different subject. So again, they became Nazis not because they brought their hatred with them from Russia, not because of bad immigration policy, not because of the broken, wonderful Israeli education system which teaches practically zero Judaism, and wherein even Holocaust studies are very, very shallow, and there is no real deep study of that matter. As a matter of fact, I'm just remembering right now that I read a long time ago. It's got to be late 80s, early 90s, around that era. There was a great study done, I think by the Ministry of Education. It was published in the papers. They asked teenagers, high school guys, about many of the contemporary social issues. And one of the questions pertained to the Holocaust. And an alarmingly high number, I forget the exact percentage, but an alarmingly high number of respondents answered that they are happy. Can you hear this? Can you imagine this? They are happy that the old people, the old survivors of the Holocaust are dying off, because now finally they won't have to be bored with the stories of the Holocaust. This is in Israel. And one more little detail about these articles. The articles also, they expressed, of course, indignation. How could this happen in Israel? Nazis, yada, yada, yada. And this is the first time that such a thing happens. This is also not true, because I remember at least 2 instances in the past wherein there were certain nightclubs in Tel Aviv area were busted, and there was all kinds of suspicious and dubious activity going on there, and they found many Nazi literature and Nazi symbols and swastikas. I don't exactly remember the context. The Nazism wasn't the main thing. They weren't Nazi gangs proper, but these Nazi symbols turned up already between, I think, also, I guess, early 90s and now, at least with 2 instances. Now, of course, this comes on the heels of a time when some people protested, or at least voiced their opinion, that saying kinos for the kicking out of Jews from their homes does not justify including this in the kinnot. And I actually agreed with this view, with this point of view, when it was published. But now another piece of information came to my hand, and that is that after the army understood that there would be some serious problems with the people who refused to drag out other Jews from their homes. In the beginning, a few people were jailed for this. They refused to do this. But then the army voluntarily made a decision to let only people who by themselves volunteer. In other words, nobody was forced to do this. Do you understand this? Do you understand what I'm telling to you? All of the soldiers, all of the military personnel who dragged the Jews out of their home did it voluntarily. They did not fulfill orders. They did it because they wanted to. Okay? And of course, there's no connection to the previous subject that I spoke to you about. There's absolutely no connection. Okay? Don't get me wrong. But I'm telling you that something is wrong, because there is a mindset here. We are bringing in trash from the former Soviet bloc. We're bringing in hatred and anti-Semitism with an ill-fated government policy of immigration, which also exists in the United States. Because if you think that all of the Mexicans are very, very nice people who don't rape and murder children, then do a little search about casualties and crime committed by the illegal aliens, and also check out their non-racist affiliates such as La Voz de Aztlán and La Raza, the race. And just one more last comment on this similar topic. Also, in the same very same time frame, Mr. Tammy Lapid, who is now has obtained a major position in Yad Vashem, who is not a directly governmental organization, but it's something. It's like